Why does men's mental health matter to you?
Well, because I have, unfortunately, personally seen the side effects of what happens when men lose their lives to mental health, and professionally as well. And I think it's a topic that needs to be addressed more openly. And if we look at our statistics in Canada, according to the government of Canada, we lose 4,500 people a year to suicide. It's 11 deaths a day, and 75% are men.
How would you see that it needs to be tackled? Because one thing, I guess, is suicide prevention. Once the person is dealing with the grip of it, and then there is the prevention of getting to that point. I'm thinking of friends of mine who have boys. I am the mother of a daughter, and so I talk to her differently that way. So what about these boys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, if you look back into history, this goes on to like eons and eons of training young little boys that be a man, don't be a wimp. Are you gonna go cry to your mommy now, or a big crybaby?
Right.
All of those statements is communicating to little boys that it's not okay for them to be human, right? They're not gonna be accepted in this facet of vulnerability. And it goes back to actually Dr. Brene Brown, who did this whole research on vulnerability. And you know, when little boys get that messaging, they're starting to hide and conceal parts of themselves because it's not okay, it's not acceptable for their gender. Because you gotta be macho, you gotta be strong. You know, we're not sissies, as they say. So it really starts to take away that right from the beginning.
And so what happens when these boys that are being told boys don't cry, walk it off? What happens when they become men?
They get disconnected to themselves. They struggle with identifying their emotions, what they're feeling. They can be in denial, unable to like identify like what it is that they need, what they want, connecting in intimate relationships, or being able to express what it is that they need or feel, you know. And if mental health comes knocking at their door, and if they already feel like as men, like crawling out of their skins when they need to talk, you know, it's very uncomfortable, well, their chances of asking for support are very close to zero. You know, ask a man to talk about how he feels and watch him react. You know what I mean? It's not something that's like encouraged.
What are you gonna cover
in the presentation? In this presentation, we're going to look at mental health through vulnerability, and that's what makes it different. We're going to look at resources, symptomology. We're going to look at videos where other men are talking to raise awareness. And depending on the group that I'm working with, we may have some scenarios and opportunities for other men to speak if they choose to. No one will be forced. And it's also to look at the harsh reality that sometimes there are no signs. Because when you're dealing with something like high-functioning depression, you will never know that the person's struggling through something, which men also have a lot of. So you might see in high school, you know, a basketball star player, straight A's, always happy, or somebody in their company that's doing really well, and they seem to be just enjoying life, and now you're reading about them, right? And it's to like discuss about how not to let your plate get so full, and how do we start to take things off, and also reflective questions to ask themselves about vulnerability. Because again, you know, I basing off of even Brene Brown's work, when there's shame, there is no allowance for growth. And men, there's an incredible amount of shame when it comes to this topic. And in the past, I've had students who felt uncomfortable when I would do presentations on certain topics, like on, you know, driving high, and that was with cannabis. And some people, and it was sometimes sad because I would go into classes where someone did just lost their life because someone got hit by an impaired driver. And having, you know, and sometimes guys would start speaking, and another student would get uncomfortable with another man being so vulnerable, right? And encouraging them to sit through that uncomfortability, because that's where growth can start to take place, right? Because growth is not always fairy dust light, and it's not always kicking and screaming, but sometimes it's a combination of both. And so really that would be that presentation, and with resources and crisis lines in case they ever needed, and strategies and some science too. Like, yes, when you work out, why it helps you and why is adequate sleep good. And maybe you have toxic, people around you that you need to set boundaries with. And that can play a role on your mental health. So really it's going to be covering so many different angles and contributions that impact one's mental health.
So how can someone sit in it? How do you help someone stay with it?
I always tell people when something feels uncomfortable, breathe. Breathe through that discomfort and so, but I will never force anyone. I will always encourage and respect your limits too. But I always encourage people to challenge themselves. And the best way is to sit, just uncomfortable as it is, sit and listen or be in that moment, in that presence, in that situation, and try to breathe through it. Because at that point, what you're doing is like when another man is sharing and another man can't handle that, that's only triggering something within you that needs to be addressed, right? It's really changing a whole societal norm.
Right. That makes me think of this imagery that has been widely distributed lately, which is guys have the shoulder-to-shoulder conversation and women have face-to-face conversations. So there's a disconnect, so that you don't have to look at each other in the eye, right? And so you don't reveal too much, you don't look for too much, you don't expose too much.
Yeah, like how often do guys lean on each other and cry when they're going through a breakup or a divorce?
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we girls will be like, don't worry.
Oh my gosh.
We got the tissue box, the ice cream, we're gonna go out, we can stay home. You know what I mean? Like there's so much nurturance around that. With guys, it's like, how do they deal with it? They don't talk to each other about, well, this is what I feel today, bro. Like, you just, even me saying that,
sounds weird.
It sounds weird, and it's almost like comedic because it's so not normal. But we need to change what is normal. Who defines these rules and why?
And they never saw it at home. They never said. They never saw dad being emotional or.
And even in society, I mean, look at TV, film, literature, music. How much is there where someone is being like a man is being celebrated for being vulnerable?
No.
Where do you see that? We don't.
Wow. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
The only thing that I would want to add is sometimes when it comes to mental health, and I've had it with loved ones, it's stuff like schizophrenia or like bipolar, where someone has reached such a manic state and they're in psychosis and depends on the trauma and whatnot, like having these kinds of conversations will not reach them. Right? And so what you could do as family and as loved ones to self-care and to, if someone's having like an explosion and they're saying such hurtful things, to not take it as if it's a like direct personal hit. An attack. And when you're around that kind of behavior though, if someone's in a manic state, it can be very exhausting. And sometimes that means that you have to have them put into a facility. Right? And we've had that in our family a few times with some relatives, and actually even right now. And so, it's something that, it's also to acknowledge, because we can have these conversations and sometimes it's medication and sometimes it's really extreme cases. I don't want to take away from that, that, it's very multi-layered, it's very complicated, but for the ways that we can reach people, that's why I designed this presentation. But I don't want to denounce that there are times that we're not able to because of the brain chemistry or because someone's in, like I said, in psychosis. And that would be another presentation for loved ones, because at that point, if someone can't differentiate between reality and and fantasy or what they're imagining or paranoia or whatever it may be, it can be very difficult, and I don't want to take away that it's not. You could contact me below. There's a form there, and reach out with your organization and where you would like for me to come, and I would love to come out and to work with you.